Good morning, everyone. Good morning, it is. If you could please find a seat, we're about to get the show on the road. Welcome, everyone, to 1 Million Cups. Great to see everybody. Do we have any first-timers in the house? Couple over here. Good deal. There's another one. Hey, welcome. Welcome all the first-timers. We appreciate it. Real quick, if you haven't already, if you do not have the 1 Million Cups app, please download it on your cellular device. Check in. You can give the presenters feedback, learn more about their companies, etc. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a couple presentations. We're going to have our expert panel ask questions afterwards, and then you all will get a chance to ask questions as well. Without further ado, if we could have our expert panel introduce themselves for us, please.
Good morning. I'm Lawrence Andre with a background in leadership development, organizational development, business consulting. You know, there's two things I bring to this room each week. It's a passion for looking at the teams that form around these early stage ideas, and a passion for the business model, understanding and developing the business model that will turn these ideas into successful companies.
Good morning.
Good morning, Quest.
Come on, we can do better than that. Come on, good. There we go.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Quest. I'm from Project United Knowledge. I run a local incubator and startup for underestimated and women individuals that want to create and validate their ideas. I have a really strong background in technology and software development, and then on the other side, just business. So I have a passion for startups and people creating their businesses, and I want to see Kansas City just become a little bit more inclusive.
Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. So without further ado, we're going to get this show on the road. So our first presenter is going to be Just Play Sports Solutions, and they're helping coaches teach and prepare players across the country through digital coaching tools and our interactive mobile app. So without further ado, please welcome Austin.
Perfect. Thanks, everybody.
Woo!
Yeah! Can everybody hear me? Are we good in the back? Okay, perfect. So real quick, how many of you have ever watched, maybe even played in a sporting event that was decided by one critical mistake? Unfortunately, I know this all too well, having played college athletics and going 7-29 during our tenure, or my tenure there. But the problem that I found was not that we had insufficient coaches, because we had coaches that had won Super Bowls, and we didn't have players that were really all that poor, because they're currently playing on Sunday. The problem that I found, and this is something that we really looked at across the entire sports landscape, is a digital gap. We're facing the largest technological disconnect between coaches and players to date. You have a generation of coaches that learned using stuff like this, 3-ring binders that are full of paper that players really don't engage with and don't care about. They want to learn on devices like this. So that's where Just Play came in. We're dealing with coaches that create and share content fundamentally different than the youth players that they're coaching. And there's really no easy way to aggregate all the content that they need, create it, and disseminate it to their players. So welcome Just Play Sports Solutions. It's a software as a service model. We use annual licensing structure to allow coaches to create and aggregate the content they need. Think playbooks, scouting reports, video, player quizzing, anything that would go into preparing that athlete for competition or even just practice. We help the coach streamline, deliver to players through interactive mobile apps, and then we actually gather data and help coaches evaluate the player preparedness and help them kind of create this feedback loop for learning for their team. Basically, the quick story is a more knowledgeable player is going to make fewer mistakes, and the team is going to win more games. And if you think about that from a coach's perspective, this is a huge value for them, because especially kind of where we are killing it right now is the college and pro space. Their lives are dependent upon the decisions that 18 to 24-year-olds are making. So, our goal is to help streamline that education process as much as possible. All right. So we'll kind of dive into how we do this. And one thing that we're really starting to leverage here is the fact that we have diagrams, notes, and video all contained in one frame. We make this easy for the end user to consume the information on, and we make it even easier for the coaches to build. We currently are operating in football and basketball. Obviously, this is our basketball platform. One thing that we're leveraging is animation within our system. So now players can understand timing and understand truly how they need to perform an operation. Really think this is flipped learning for athletics. That's where we're bringing in the education side. Coaches can add video of themselves walking through the play, walking through anything that they need to show as well. Then with one click of a button, jumping next, they can actually go in and take a quiz on this. So the video will load, the clip plays, bang, it pauses. Now a player has to answer a question on what the actions of this set are. So we're really trying to engage them throughout the learning process rather than just having a coach speak to the athletes. We really want to make this a two-way street. So kind of get through this here. At the end of the quiz, players will get immediate feedback with what they got right and wrong, just to be able to kind of edify themselves on what they need to work on. So we've had some case studies actually done on this, and one thing that we work with, everything from the mid-major all the way up to the pros, and this is Western Illinois women's basketball. They spent, using our platform and leveraging our system, they spent an extra 3,700 minutes in our system. They built a scouting report quiz every week. Their average for the entire year was 94%, every player on the staff. So they were really diving into their scouting report. They were really looking at it and spending time in the system. Well, what it resulted in was 11 more wins, and they were highly ranked in two very important categories around kind of the mental side of the game, which is an offensive turnover percentage and defensive turnover percentage. Think of this as what percentage of possessions you're forcing the other team to turn the ball over, or what percentage of possessions you are turning the ball over. Being highly ranked in this category means that you're very prepared and your basketball IQ is heavily improved. And, another case study that we had is with the Connecticut Sun and the WNBA. They're the second youngest team in the league, so being receptive to technology is probably a big thing for them. They were preseason projected to be second to last. They finished fourth and were about 2 minutes away from making the finals. So the technology is being leveraged by teams to truly better teach athletes, and it's proving to show results. The big thing for us is integrating with other companies in the space. We are not going to replace the video editing tools that these coaches are using, such as the Huddles of the world. Really what we're doing is we're allowing coaches to leverage that video to better teach their athletes. We want to take everything outside of video editing and streamline that for an organization. So, some of our recent milestones, we completed a sport-agnostic platform in what we call our mega update. Honestly, just last week we rolled this out. It was a huge milestone for the company, a huge relief for us. It's really going to help us scale into other sports much, much more quickly. Last month we reached $400,000 in sales, and we're going to be pushing into lacrosse here in Q4. And we believe that with our traction in the college basketball side and college football side, that'll help us convince lacrosse teams with those schools to jump on board as well. Kind of some of the next steps, we are going to go through a director of sales hire. So if you know anybody, please reach out. But then this will also help us expand our enterprise solution, and then also leverage technology to automate more of the process for the lower margin sales as well. So some of the competitive advantages that we have, it's a better content solution. So we help coaches that are less tech savvy create the content they need by making it extremely easy to use and connecting everything into one place for them. And then also giving coaches the most in-depth user engagement analytics so they understand where their players are spending their time, so they know if they need to create more content in certain areas, or if they're wasting their time doing certain things. So, and then I think the last one is probably my favorite, and it's that we're a young, passionate, experienced team. We have my co-founder played basketball at Wichita State under Mark Turgeon, and then went into web development for 9 years. Some of the individuals that we're hiring are former college basketball coaches, former college football coaches. And one of our engineers tried to build an SAT solver using machine learning. I don't even know how to even begin to conceive that, but he's wicked smart, and the benefit of this is we're building a team around us of people that know their role, and it's been a big benefit for us. I wouldn't be where we are today without our board of advisors. John Baum at George K. Baum and Company, Wally Myers, the director of entrepreneurship at KU, Brian McClendon, formerly with Uber and Google, and then Dominique Foxworth, played 9 years in the NFL, went to Harvard MBA, and has been a big benefit. You'll see him on Mike and Mike in the Morning if you watch that. And then Pipeline and the Catalyst. Catalyst was an incubator out of KU, kind of prepped me up for Pipeline, where I pitched at the University Spotlight and got to pitch at Innovator of the Year 2 years ago. And I just really cannot say the value of those programs enough. It's just been so helpful. That's everything. So, any questions?
Yeah. So, Austin, one clarifying question on your presentation. You said $400,000 of sales. Is that to date? Is that monthly?
That is year to date.
Year to date, so 2017.
So 2017 sales
Thank you.
is $400,000.
Okay. So we talked a little bit before your presentation, Austin. I heard you talk about flipping the classroom. For some of us in the room, we're going to understand what that means in terms of changing the learning cycle. I also realized that part of what you're doing is you're working with coaches to help them build an LMS or a learning management system so that they can start to teach their players how to play the game the way they want to. Really difficult stuff, and it requires you to be in partnership with the coaches, because the coaches have to learn a different way to coach. You have to learn a different way to provide the tools. If the two of you get it together, then the player sees the impact and the success on the field.
For sure.
So all that's pretty cool. You told me that, quite frankly, Lawrence, there's a lot we're learning right now. There's so much newness here that we know there's almost more that we don't know than we do know, and you're in a constant environment of learning. I would love to hear how your team is kind of filtering that feedback in, and how that's influencing where you're at in this stage of developing the product.
For sure. All of our reps are connected to every team by cell phone. We open up the conversation for feedback. We want those teams and programs to feel like we're an extension of their staff, not just their software sales rep. So, one of the things that we do is we constantly evaluate how teams are using it and have conversation across multiple teams to try to educate everyone collectively in ways that they can either better leverage the platform or find creative solutions for this. For example, University of Michigan, their women's basketball team created a scouting report in our system for practice. So they put their practice stats in there, they put video from practice, and they put notes from coaches on that. And so immediately after practice, coaches or players can go in and they can basically have the entire practice feedback on their mobile device, and it's not taking away from meeting time. If players do have more questions, they can leverage the platform to get those questions asked.
And that's something you all never envisioned until they told you we're doing it. And then I bet your team said, oh my gosh, what could we do with this? And you start building features in for other customers.
It's the big vision of where we're taking this is growing so rapidly with the feedback and support that we're getting from our coaches that we're learning more from them than I think they're learning from us.
One of the things I'm interested in, I've seen development teams and strategy teams, they get locked in on the idea, they get locked in on how to build stuff. And it's really hard to move them off of that center. But it sounds like in this environment, you've got a team that's very open and saying, we'll build what the customers want us to build. Did you just naturally start there, or did your team have to take an evolution to get to that mindset?
No, we naturally started there because, think about the behavior of a coach. They're a little bit more, they're a little older, they're pretty stuck in their ways, they have a routine that they go through. We have to insert ourselves into that routine and make it simple, easy, and streamlined for them, because any one trip along the way, and they're going to disregard the platform, and they're going to say what we had before is what I'm going to stick with. So understanding the social behavior of our customer was a really, really big proponent of our success, and the fact that we've been there. I have a pretty big network of coaches, and so we are able to really work with them to build things out as we need.
I just want to emphasize something I heard there, understanding the social behavior of the customer. That is so critical. I found myself guilty of this and so many other entrepreneurs as well. We fall in the trap of trying to change the behavior of the customer instead of simply understanding it and delivering solutions to it. So kudos for recognizing that.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for your awesome company that you've created. My cool question is what does it actually cost? And since it's a software as a service, how do you guys price this out for per school or per team?
For sure. So we range anywhere from $150 a year all the way up to 15 grand. And really what we found is there are so many pieces of our platform that coaches like that we had to split it up like that. If you think about the college basketball space, for example, if I jump back to this and scroll down, this is an example of a scouting report that coaches can put together. Well, in our basic system, they can add these text notes. That doesn't really cost us anything so that we can keep the price low. But in our college basketball side, we automate over 300 statistics with a click of a button, rosters, player pictures, personnel, which obviously costs more, so we've got to outlay that cost. That may be a $5,000 package for the UCLAs of the world.
And then my second question to that is what have you done to create a barrier around your business to stop other people from pretty much copying your structure and also entering the market and becoming your competitor?
The same challenges that we're facing getting into the market are the ones that are going to keep us there, and it's the content creation. Coaches don't want to recreate content, so we're offering professional services to come on site, help them recreate their content in a more meaningful way for their athletes. Their players are immediately seeing the benefit of it, and that's keeping us pretty protected. The other thing that we're doing is we're able to penetrate an athletic department and spread out wide with lacrosse and football and these other sports. So then we really work with the athletic department, and that can offer huge security there.
We are going to open it up to the audience. If you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll come around. Right here on your left.
2 questions for your sales director. So who's the ideal candidate for that? Is that person 25 to 35 years old that's going to identify with the up-and-coming young coach, or is that an older person that can really walk in and command a room?
I would like to hire someone over the age of 30, so kind of split where you are and go north with that. Really want somebody who has been in software sales in some capacity and relatively connected to sports. We're really finding that right person because this is a big investment for our team, and we want to make sure that we find the right individual. But experience is the biggest key.
Okay, I have a question in the way back center.
You may have mentioned this in your presentation, but in describing some of the training techniques or even the plays that are conveyed to the athletes, is some of that information proprietary or those plays private? How do you protect that if coaches or like these are my plays, the things I'm teaching, or proprietary?
Yeah, no,
how do you deal with that?
That's a great question. And here's one thing that I would say. This was the playbook that I played with in college. I still have it. It's not very secure. Our platform, with 2 clicks, a player can be deleted from the system. Players can't download, export, anything like that. So in essence, it's actually more secure than what's currently on the market. I do understand that with cloud-based solutions and logins, login changes can happen. We're constantly monitoring through Google Analytics where people are logging in from. If we see that somebody is logging in on the KU basketball system from Seattle, we're probably going to talk to the staff, figure out why that's happening, because there could be a coach traveling or recruiting or something like that.
Question in the back left.
Austin, awesome presentation. I love what you're doing. You're really rocking it. 2 questions that have come to me as I've listened to you present today. A lot of data that you have there, that's just an awesome sort of resource. The first is you're currently marketing to that was a slip, wasn't it? To athletic teams. Mm-hmm. But what you also have is this ideal educational engagement tool for college teams. And so literally this ability for you to monitor how well these people are actually learning different skills through your platform could be something that would be interesting to colleges. Because let's say I was a college athlete, never played after that. That's the majority of college athletes, so it could be a very interesting educational tool. So that's one thing. And two, the potential for monitoring injuries. So latency, mental latency that you could monitor after head injuries, et cetera. Have you thought about those kind of things through your platform?
So I'll hit the second question first. Not really. I'm pretty connected to Murphy Grant, who's the head athletic trainer at KU. He's a big influencer among medical trainers in the space. We've talked about doing things down the line, but our big thing is we want to think big and execute small. Let's perfect the vision that we have. Let's leverage the data that we have. And as we continue to find other uses and teams start to get creative with it, then we'll start to expand upon that once they prove the model for us. So, and then, sorry, can you remind me just real quick of the
It was
the
just
first one?
marketing to actually colleges as an engagement tool with their
Yeah,
athletes as opposed to just to the teams.
So we have started to kind of push for that. The big thing is we're helping coaches connect to their players and leveraging new tools in order to do that. Some teams are buying into that, some teams aren't, but the big thing is we've got to have the data behind us to support it, and that's really what we're gathering this year.
Question back right.
Great job so far. So I'm a coach, and I've been somewhere for a while, and then I take a new position, and that tends to happen relatively quickly, right? Can I take that information with me to my new school, or is the contract with the school?
That's a great question. We contract with the school, but we don't actually own any of the content. We feel like the creator of the content owns the content. So it's up to them and their decision on whether or not they choose to take that content to another school. So we put the power in the hands of the coach since they're the ones creating it.
Question in the front.
So what picks you apart from Huddle? It's kind of like the same thing, but.
Yeah, so Huddle, think of Huddle as really a video library. It's an aggregation of video, and they do have data that you can filter down with that for. But what we do is actually massively different in the fact that we allow coaches to put diagrams, notes, and video all contained in one frame, and then allow coaches to quiz players on that. So the big thing is, not every person learns just from video. Some people need a static image. Some people need an animated image. Some people need notes. We're aggregating all of that into one spot to help the athlete better learn in the terms that they want to, as opposed to what's being dictated to them.
Question over here. What have you learned by having your tech actively out in the wild, and what are you trying to improve right now?
That's a great question. I think we have learned it's never as easy as we think it is. And the users that we're working with are not the most tech savvy. So something that our generation thinks is easy may not always be conveyed to them. So always trying to find the process improvement to better teach coaches how to use the platform is so key. But the other thing to that we found is as they dive into it and as they use it, their creativity is unbelievable. So really leveraging the relationships that we have with them to continue to scale the platform and offer new services is a big focus of ours.
Question back left.
So not really a question, more of a statement. I love what you guys are doing. I'm a former basketball coach myself, high school basketball.
Yeah.
We did use Huddle, and the team still uses Huddle. So there is a lot of similarity. I think what separates you guys from Huddle and some of those other services is that Q&A piece. Mm-hmm. You were talking about the educational piece. I think that's huge. Huddle has a huge name right now.
Yep.
In that area, in that field, so it'll be a tough. That share is definitely. They have a high percentage of that. That market share right now. So really, you guys pushing that educational piece is the other piece. I think that is a major piece of what you guys have. that would definitely separate you guys from Huddle and other service providers of such.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like to that point, that's why we started to focus on colleges. I think I may have missed the slide, but I mean, we work with really a lot of the major brands: Texas, Oklahoma, or Texas, Ohio State, Michigan, UCLA, Duke. By focusing on those brands where they have the bigger budgets and they can afford tools like ours, that's really where we're seeing a lot of benefit. And then kind of the market strategy for getting into the high school space is leveraging all of the clinics. I'm sure you went to a clinic as a coach to learn more. Well, noticing that our system is a learning management solution, why couldn't the same way your players better learn your system through Just Play, you learn Coach K's system through Just Play? You know, and then you have the ability to leverage that to teach your players and kind of automate that content creation to leverage to teach your team. So that's one of the ways that we're going to kind of attack that side of things. We're well aware of Huddle, though. They're an amazing company, and they've built a great product.
So our final question for you today is, I know you mentioned a couple of things, but what can we as a community do to help you?
For sure. So one team that we would really love to get to is the Kansas City Chiefs. We work with UMKC. We are meeting with Sporting Kansas City. We work with a lot of the high schools in the space. Even, you know, in some capacity, I think meeting, you know, a quarterback would be awesome, but potentially anybody on their coaching staff could be a big benefit to us, because there's some things that we would love to do with them, even if it's on a much more smaller engagement. But just to be able to work with a team like that would be such a rewarding experience.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, while we get ready for our second presentation, we have a couple announcements. First, Megan with Second Fridays.
Hey guys, I'm Megan with Startland News, which if you didn't know, we're now under the Kansas City Startup Foundation umbrella. And if you haven't heard, every second Friday at Village Square Co-working Space over on State Line has sort of like a beer swap, startup get-together thing. But this second Friday is Friday the 13th, so we're gonna make it a little bit spooky. I'm not quite sure what it's going to be yet. We're still figuring that out, but there's gonna be pumpkins and like spooky snacks. But if you haven't been, it's a really low-key networking sort of event. It's a great way to connect with members of the startup community on a different level. So that's 5 to 8 o'clock at Village Square this Friday. So I hope to see some of you guys there.
Thank you. Thank you. Kyle?
Good morning. How many of you out there listen to podcasts? Cool. How many of you are familiar with the Radiotopia network of podcasts? I see a couple hands. So they produce really awesome shows like Ear Hustle, 99% Invisible, The Heart. The team behind that is called PRX, and they are going to be in Kansas City on Saturday hosting a podcasting and storytelling workshop right here at the Kauffman Foundation. If you are interested in checking that out or attending or learning more, hooking up with creatives in town who produce podcasts, grab me afterwards and give me your business card, and we'll get you all set up. So if you're interested in attending a storytelling and podcasting workshop this Saturday, grab me afterwards. Thanks.
All right, time for our second presentation. Help me in welcoming Tim Donnelly with Senior View.
It's not on? Can you hear me back there? You cannot hear me. Yes, it's recorded. Got it. Yep, right there. Live stream, Facebook. Thank you for joining in. Why don't you give me a hand like that? No, that's all right. Yeah. All right. So it was back in May of I think it was 1998 that I went through the Fast Track program that gave me the confidence to quit my job and start SoftView. So we have been in business for a while. However, over the past 18 months, we started a new venture, and I'm going to talk about that. How many have you heard of Pipeline? I know it was mentioned before. Raise your hands. That's fantastic. Well, Pipeline is an organization that fosters a family culture for high-growth entrepreneurs. And so Pipeline is based out of the Midwest, and there's roughly 112 of us that have gone through this program over the past 11 years. I was fortunate to be in the very first class, the charter class, back in 2006 is when we launched that, graduated in 2007. I'm going to connect the dots between my entrepreneurial journey and the value that I've got out of Pipeline over the years. So an entrepreneurial journey, a lot of people over the past several years have come to me and asked for advice. And when I give the advice, it always revolves around these questions. Like, do you have what it takes? Have you thought through this venture that you're thinking about starting? And so with Pipeline, we have the resources. We have people who have been there and done that. And I'm showing some images of some of the Pipeline members that have reached certain milestones over the past 10 years. This is Jeff Hargroves, who sold his business to a private equity firm. Jason Taji, who's done extremely well with Farm Mobile. Bruce Ianni and Davion Ross, who have done really well with Shot Tracker. Carlos Antiquera, and of course, Toby Rush. So these are the people that we can go to within our ecosystem and ask for advice and for help. Because when you're dealing with the entrepreneurial journey, you've got to have, resources to help you out. So what's my DNA of the entrepreneurial journey? I was highly competitive growing up. That's me. Being the youngest of 6, I learned how to take a little hazing from my older siblings. I learned how to catch big fish over the years, and there's a connection here that I'll make in a second. And I know how to finish a really long race. In 2006, this picture was taken. This was the charter class of Pipeline. It was taken down in Wichita. And to know that you have an organization that's backing you is just absolutely phenomenal. So everything revolves around the family, whether it's the entrepreneurial family or your personal family. And so the connection to my business and Pipeline, I started in 1999. We have a legacy business. It deals in the mortgage industry. We help businesses nurture leads. We entered into the senior living business where we actually generate leads and help those leads become residents at senior living communities across the United States. So the pain in the industry is that $10 billion a year is lost through open beds in the senior living space. Every year, 55% of those residents turn over. It's a growing market. It's going to explode over the next few years because of the baby boomers. So what we've done is we've created a model that we take big data, machine learning algorithms, marketing automation, and we help optimize census targets for communities. So the architecture, it's sophisticated. We've wrapped some patents around it, and we've got a phenomenal team of people that have done things like this mobile platform that put the technology in the hands of the salespeople at the senior living communities. So we've achieved numerous milestones, and these milestones have been, driven by a passionate team. We're based out of the Crossroads, so we've got about 48 team members. And so that's a huge milestone, to know that you have a team of people that can continually go out and attract clients. It took us 12 years to achieve this NASCAR slide. It took us 12 months to achieve this in senior living. This has been our road to 500 client communities, which we were just at a trade show this past year. The industry says it's never been done in 12 months, where a new company comes in and achieves a feat like this. And our investors appreciate it because they know that those indicators will lead to higher revenues. And so if you're serious about being an entrepreneur, if you know someone that's serious, and if you want to achieve these types of milestones, knowing that you have resources and a network to help you get there, I would have never been able to achieve what I just showed without the Pipeline Network. So I encourage you to apply. The applications close on October 19th. And so feel free to ask anyone questions that is here with Pipeline. Raise your hand if you're with Pipeline. Ask anyone about the value of the network, and they'll passionately share it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. We'll start with questions from the expert panel.
Okay, Tim, so you've been in business for almost 20 years, existing business, SoftView, a new kind of venture coming out of this called SeniorView. You identified a fact in the marketplace that 55% of these units are turning over. That's a fact. Whether that's a problem or not is maybe a conversation for a different day. You're not trying to change that, but you're recognizing a business opportunity. Because if I'm running a business and I have 55% turnover, then I'm going to be dependent on very good quality lead generation to fill that turnover. And that's where SeniorView kind of was birthed about 18 months ago. You know, I have come to appreciate how when we see an opportunity like that and we have an idea on how to solve it, our idea doesn't usually survive first contact with customer. You were able to move to quick penetration in 12 months, as you said in your presentation. I'd love for you to share maybe one kind of pivotal story of where you went into the marketplace with one idea, and by learning from the early customers, you were able to pivot to accelerate your penetration.
Yeah, so being an entrepreneur that thinks he's smarter than the market. So one of the first things that we did is we established a price point for our services, knowing what a lot of other industries do with respect to lead generation. They charge on a per lead basis. So Google charges typically on a per click basis. That's kind of scary for some. So there's aggregators like LendingTree, Zillow, Bankrate, and NetQuote, and a few others that charge for their leads at a per lead basis. So we went into senior living thinking that we would just start right there because all other industries play that game. Well, to come to find out, they were used to paying a success fee for move-ins. So new residents move in, it's kind of like a real estate agent getting a transaction done, that's when they get paid. Well, the senior living industry was used to doing that. And so what happened was we had to transition from a per lead pricing model to a success fee pricing model. And until the past couple of months, we had to live in that world. So once we achieved a certain critical mass in the market where we had a brand and a reputation, we began to charge on a subscription fee basis, and so we charge communities $500 per month per community, and then so we also charge that success fee, but it's at a reduced fee, and so that's helped us deal with that issue.
So this is fascinating, Tim, because if I heard you correctly, you went into the marketplace with one pricing model, a per lead model that was very familiar. The market says, no, that's not how we do it. We do it on a conversion basis. So you adapted to them, which was necessary for survival most likely. And then you talk about moving to a third pricing model, subscription. I'm curious, which sounds very smart, I'm curious when you had the awareness that you wanted to get to that third level, and did you actually hold the second level just to kind of keep the marketplace until you were ready to get to the third level, or did you kind of discover the third level accidentally along the way?
Well, we knew that the third level is where we wanted to be. It's just how do we get there? And so until we had the reputation and the trust from an established client base, we knew that we couldn't get there. And plus, meeting with numerous private equity firms. So as an entrepreneur, I know that at some day we're going to have an exit. So you start talking to private equity and they start asking you questions. Well, those questions typically lead to where you need to build your business. And so they were all talking about MRR. That's monthly recurring revenue. So a subscription based model will help you get to an MRR that you want. So, yeah.
Well, I think there's a huge lesson learned for all of us here in that, too often we know what that end revenue model is and we try to go for it immediately instead of using a placeholder revenue model until we're ready to convert over. So I applaud you for recognizing that, and it's a lesson for all of us. I had a second question for you. We talked about before your presentation that, this is an existing company, that SoftView has been around for 20 years, that brings a certain stability in the company, and that has given you the opportunity to bring talent in for senior view that otherwise other startups wouldn't have been able to capture. Can you share with us, we often think about, having to spin these things off and create these independent entities, but in your instance, you were able to accelerate the path by staying within inside a bigger company. Can you share about that a little bit?
That's a great point. So I remember back in the old days where I was trying to hire talent, and it was just me and a couple of other folks sitting around a coffee table wanting, really smart Stanford, quality talent, people to come in the door, and that was very difficult. Having an established, mature business, there's no question we had the upper hand to attract new talent to say, look, we're going to build a new business, a new venture. And so we're hiring people to help us build it. We had this culture established on the legacy business, the mortgage business, that was really good. It was, the team there is phenomenal, very trustworthy. And so that was appealing for potential candidates to come in and look, hey, we're a semi-safe business. And so I can tell you right now that there's probably a half dozen of the people that we have that I showed on that slide earlier that would have never taken that leap of faith unless there was some maturity in the business.
Well, you've given me a new pathway forward, and perhaps others in the room, that if we have an idea, instead of trying to build that independently as a new venture, perhaps there's an existing company that the idea is congruent with, and it can be built inside of that company, leveraging the stability and the resources of that company. So it's another pathway forward for many of us.
Good day. Can you explain to us how you're using and leveraging the data to generate your new customers?
Yeah, so interesting. We have a database of 82 million Americans in the U.S. I guess those are the same thing, but there's about 164 attributes with each database record. And so those attributes are connected to a scoring algorithm for each community in the United States, and there's 15,000. So examples of those attributes could be age. When somebody gets to the age of 84, that's typically when people move into a senior living community. We also have third-party data attributes such as warranties or registrations that are made with products that are maybe connected to the senior living industry, one of which is walk-in bathtubs. So if you ask senior living communities what's an indicator of somebody might be moving in or looking at moving into a community, a walk-in bathtub it's about 6 to 9 months after they purchase that is when they're going to be knocking on the door. So that's an example of it's kind of crazy, but so those are attributes that we go out and we partner with data compilers that can help us figure out who's the right match for which community.
I just bought a walk-in bathtub, so that must mean I'm moving next year.
Well done.
Yeah, our call center will be talking to you now.
So do you have a data background?
Sorry, what?
Do you have a data background?
I don't.
All right, so the next question to that bounces off of his question. How did you know what qualities to look for in a data team or a data scientist person to come up on your team to build this for you, to pull those data points that you knew about?
Yeah, so that's kind of connected to Lawrence's question. We hired some executives when we were just launching SeniorView that would then be able to ask the right questions for those team members. We have an incredibly strong data science team that figures out the right algorithms to optimize to reach the conversion rates our clients want. And so I would love to say that I was the brains behind it, but we have some seasoned veterans that are actually driving that side of the business.
we're going to turn it over to you guys for questions. Please get your hands up. I'll get us started real quick. Just to set the scene a little bit more, who's your user and what are they doing with your technology exactly?
So the user for Senior View is the senior living communities themselves. So if you think at a community, there's an executive director, that's like the CEO of the property, and then there's a sales director. So those are the two key users that we have, and then you have regional executives that kind of oversee numerous communities. So those are users, and so we put the technology in the hands of the salesperson who's typically running around the community. We send them alerts when leads are generated or tours are scheduled. So that's the most addictive thing about our solution, is that we actually schedule the tours on behalf of the communities. There's a company here, it's called Showings.com. Has anybody ever heard of that? They do business with the real estate industry, and they schedule showings for families when they're going. So we do the same thing for senior living communities. And it's very addictive for our clients because they get lazy and they like, oh, somebody scheduled another tour for us. It's awesome. So it's we figured that out early on as well. So we have a nice call center. We call them our Family Advocate Management Team, FAM team for short. So question in the back? In the front?
You have a question in the front as well,
Yes.
so we'll start here.
Hi, I'm working with a company called Unlabeled here, and we do a subscription-based service providership for music for recording artists. One big thing that we ran into this year was collection with the MRR, needing to keep that going, and our infrastructure wasn't conducive for collecting on a regular basis. I wanted to know, how do you overcome that hurdle of making sure your clients know that this is important, even if it's not urgent, and how do you get past that?
Yes, excellent. So again, learning from all the mistakes that I made on our legacy business. So we used to send out invoices to the banks on a monthly basis, and we'd wait for them to pay, which they're fairly good at. Senior living, we said, you know what, we're going to do a credit card transaction. So we do an automatic credit card transaction every month for that subscription fee. So that's helped. We haven't ran into any issues with people terminating their contracts early. And typically our contracts are 6 months, and so they auto-renew. And so that's how we did it. So we're doing credit card transactions to realize our MRR.
What about the success fee, though? Because that's a variable cost.
Yeah, and that's invoiced, but they pay with a credit card. So all of our senior living business is done through credit card transactions. It's just we send the invoice and say, hey, we're going to ding your credit card for this amount on this day. Please call us if you have any questions.
Big organizations that don't want to do it that way?
There's only one out there that's ginormous, and they're a client. That's Brookdale, and so we send them a monthly statement because there's so many transactions that we do for them.
Question in the back?
Hey, Tim, congratulations. It's absolutely brilliant. And for those that are entrepreneurs, Tim is probably the epicenter for the connected entrepreneur. Congrats on mastering the innovator's dilemma with your business to be able to create something new. The model's brilliant. You created an intermediary in a space that everyone wants to be involved in. And my question is, how are you able to reconcile the delivery of the introduction and the placement of the client? Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
How are you able to reconcile for your books when a lead of yours gets placed in a room?
Yeah, so that's so there's a couple things. Number one, when we distribute out the marketing campaigns on behalf of our clients, they're under their brand. So when responses come in from one of those campaigns, we know exactly which client it's for because there's tracking technology, whether it's on the form fill or the inbound phone call, because every number is connected to a individual community. So when we receive that lead, the first thing that we do is we send a notification over to the community saying that we just generated a lead on your behalf. No actions needed. We're still qualifying it. But once we schedule the tour, we send another notification over to that client community, letting them know that, this upcoming Friday, you've got a tour at 3 o'clock with this family. And then when a move-in occurs, typically our client, our FAM team is in discussions with the family through the process. And they're also in touch with the communities to make sure that everything's going smoothly. So we know when move-ins occur, plus on the back end, our database, the address changes that happen with the post office, we get those updates every 6 weeks. So we know how to do the checks and balances on any move-ins.
Question in the front.
So a little bit related to that same question, is there issues of, it sounds like you're planting some good stakes in the ground of, well, this lead didn't come from you, it came from a community provider that looks at all the, is there issues that are around that and how do you deal with those?
Yeah. So the question is, are there any times where we generate a lead that the community already has? Is that one way to say it? So no question, 10 to 15% of the time. And so if you think about that, our efforts, it cost us anywhere from $60 to $80 to generate a lead. And so there's a conversion path that when we get a hold of somebody, we qualify them, we schedule a tour. Does the tour happen? Do they move in? And so when we face that dilemma of, hey, I've already got this lead, it's just a cost of doing business. It's unfortunate, but that's the way we have to deal with it. We believe that down the road that will be a part of the policing of leads. And so we're working on certain things to help us, be the one-stop shop for aggregating all leads for the industry.
Are they telling you when they have a lead from someone else at the beginning, or does it sometimes happen?
So sometimes it's manual, so they actually have to tell us. Sometimes it's through an API. So we'll ping their CRM. So sometimes they use different CRMs. We provide a CRM with our system. And so if they're using their own CRM, we'll ping that up. That record's already there, so we have to move on.
Question on your right.
Hello, how you doing? And how
Good.
everybody?
Cheers.
Having a good day, I hope.
Oh, yeah.
Hope you have a phenomenal rest of your day and get home safe to your families. Thank you for having me. This is my first time here.
Cool.
I didn't grow up in Kansas City. I grew up in Minneapolis. I was born here, and my question is, well, it's not a question. I'm kind of confused on some things. Entrepreneur is owning your own business. And to own your own business is to make a profit, right? So that's buying something for $5, selling it for $50 if you can. That's the American way. I learned the American dream was a nightmare for me. Going to work for 8 hours and getting yelled at because you didn't clock out, So it rubbed me the wrong way because I genuinely was trying to help him with his business. And take it home, wrap it up. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Well, I just learned to buy low, sell high. I can buy this cup for $1, sell it for 10, I made a profit. I mean, it's just that simple, but I just don't know how to start a business. Like, how do you go by starting a business? I want to buy this building. Yeah. And, I don't know that part. Am I going to get tax invasion if I open my own business and don't know how to do the taxes? That's where I come into
And that's a great question. So, and I applaud you for asking that. And so I did mention out of the gate that I started my entrepreneurial journey in this building, and that's okay. So this is another commercial for the Kauffman Foundation and the organization or the program that they have called Fast Track. So get yourself into that program ASAP if you're interested in taking this journey. Sure, yeah.
Who do I speak with to sit down that's going to, don't look at what I have on.
Yeah.
That's really going to sit down with me genuinely and show me, look, this is the step that you take to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I don't want to work with somebody for the rest of my life.
Yeah, amen.
No way.
There you go. There are so many reasons.
There's a free national resource. It's called SCORE. There's a SCORE chapter here in Kansas City. It is free, absolutely. It's over on Truth.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. You're in the right place, man. We're so happy to have you.
Yes.
You are surrounded by people who are ready to help.
Got it.
I'm going to thank you, Tim.
You got it.
Welcome Candace up to tell you a little bit more about Pipeline Entrepreneurs.
Hi, everybody, and pardon my voice, I'm a little bit sick. I am with Pipeline. I'm one of the program coordinators. I've been with the company about 2 months, and I'm just here to talk real quick about applications. Applications for us open September 1st, and they close in 8 days. I don't really think I can do it any better than Tim could, so I'm not going to even try. I'm just going to point out we have some Pipeline entrepreneurs in the room. If you have any questions, Tim, Austin, Dave, I know Jeff Rohr's here, Kim Gandy's here, would be happy to talk to you afterwards, and you can find them up at the front of the room. All right.
All right. Thank you all so much for joining us. We will see you next week, same time, same place, for presentations from last night's game and Hickory Union Moto. Have a great week, guys. Thank you.